All right, y'all, what's up, man? We're still on it. Disclaimer, right off the rip, the podcast was sold, Stigmatism in My Soul, Gumby Publishing, Sean Xavier Gumby Jr., and myself, Sean Xavier Gumby Sr. Do not wish to slander or defame or libel anybody as it relates to the United States versus America. United States of America versus Dion Gatlin or Cuffy in the Big Meech case, Tammy Cowins. Everything that we say and all that we're drawn from is actual court documents. You can pull them down offline on Pacer, and some of them you could just Google them and get them. Now we got that out of the way. Follow me on my Instagram. The podcast was sold. Thank you. And I want to shout out everybody, all my new subscribers. Appreciate y'all. Now, today we're going to be coming from, you're going to need the motion to suppress the wiretap evidence, which is a 32-page document. We've covered this already. And we're going to be coming from the Franks hearing dated October 17, 2016, where you have 4 defendants, okay? Cuffy, Dion Gatlin, Timothy Rush, Andre Rush, and Gibbs. There's 4 defense attorneys and there's 2 assistant U.S. attorneys, and the one U.S. attorney has already direct examined Tammy Cowins. Cuffy's attorney, Mrs. Trog, has already cross-examined Tammy Cowins, and this is the second defense attorney. This is him cross-examining Tammy Cowins. And in this cross-examination, it is clear that through her testimony in this and the great cross-examination by Mr. Humphrey, Tammy Cowins pretty much confirms that Demetrius Flannery, or Big Meech, was a material participant in the setting up of Suarez and Dion Gatlin or Cuffy. And we're going to get into that. But right off the rip, right? Humphrey starts going at Tammy Cowins about her participation and her role in the case against Terry White. And he's asking her, like, what was your role in Terry White's case? And out of her mouth, verbatim, she says, I was responsible for 90 to 95% of the investigation leading to the arrest and conviction and sentencing to prison time of Terry White. This is out of her mouth on the stand. Okay? Now, when you first involved with the DEA, you came in because it is fair to say that you were worried about becoming a target of the investigation of Mr. White. Yes, she says. He then asks, and as a part of that investigation, you did some work where you made some phone calls. She says, I think I did 90% of the work from what I was told. 90 to 95% of the work on that case. So she then begins to detail how she gathered evidence on Terry White. Tammy Cowins would call Jack Harvey on the phone, have Terry White next to her, or be on the phone with Terry White and patch Jack Harvey in on a three-way without what's the word I'm looking for, y'all? Without Terry White's consent, right, behind his back. Or Terry White would be there. She would call Jack Harvey. Jack Harvey would pick up, yeah, this is me. She would take the phone. She'd be talking like this, take the phone and put it down like this so you couldn't see the number. And her and Terry White would have these conversations. She would create these conversations where he would incriminate himself, and Jack Harvey is listening. This is what she did. Okay, so you were making those calls and you were turning those over to Jack Harvey. This is her answer. That was the question by the attorney. Jack Harvey was on the call while I was having a conversation with Mr. White. I would dial the number, turn my phone over, and Jack would hear the calls. And sometimes they were conference calls, and there were also meetings. Then he starts to talk about, you've never testified ever in your life. Since you've been working with the DEA, you've never testified. Right? She says no. He asked, as a part of that case, you were never required to testify, correct? She says, with Mr. White? No. And in fact, you haven't testified in any cases which you have been used as a confidential source, have you? This is her answer. I have never testified. This is my first time in court. Now, this is key. This is key. Now, y'all keep that on the forefront of your brain now. Stay right there with me. Okay, and you believe that you were about 90 to 95% responsible for building the case against Mr. White. She says yes. Now, this, what we just read, and what this attorney, all of these attorneys, and I can't wait to read what the other two attorneys do, but I know that they said, listen, it's four of us, so let's all attack her. Let's all put our entire brains on one specific part of her story instead of all four of us trying to concentrate on her whole story, and we're just beating a dead horse altogether. So this is important. And this is where this motion to suppress the wiretap comes into play. She's never been required to testify, never been in court, right? She verbally states that she was 90% responsible, 95% responsible for the Terry White case, never testified. And this is, at this point, solidifying her credibility, her good credibility at this point, her good integrity at this point, and her excellent work as an informant. By being truthful and honest, she was able to get Terry White investigated, indicted, convicted, and sent to prison based on honesty, truth, and I'm trying to use the right words, if you can use it, fair dealings as a snitch, right? Or being a good informant, right? There was no reason for her to lie. That's my point. Because she didn't have to testify. Nobody knew she was an informant. It wasn't known. She was low key with it. Nobody knew, only her. And she's working with the DA. So she got to tell the truth. She knows. right? Now, this is important because when she does the initial affidavit that is referenced in the motion to suppress filed by Lorenzo Gibbs, Andre Rush, Timothy Rush, and Dion Gatlin, Cuffy, all four of them, in their motion to suppress, and in the initial affidavit, she's still unknown. She's still, her identity isn't known when she's making her initial statements as to who, what, where, when, and why. And this is when she confirms in this document that, let's go to page 12. And let's go to page 3. Let's go to page 3 to support what I'm saying. Second, the affidavit asserts facts relating to both Tammy Cowins' reliability as an informant and measures DEA St. Louis investigators took to corroborate information provided by Tammy Cowins. It says CS1, but I'm saying Tammy Cowins. As to CS1's reliability, the affidavit attested that Tammy Cowins was cooperating with the DEA for monetary gain, had been shown to provide reliable information to the DEA regarding a multitude of felonious activity, and had provided information that resulted in the arrest of at least one individual and the seizure of drugs and U.S. currency. So, the DEA agents in St. Louis, when they first meet her, because these DEA agents, they're not just gonna take your word that you money, you understand, and be like, all right, you told me you money, all right, you money. They verify. They really dot their I's and cross their T's. They put a magnifying glass and a flashlight up your ass, and they make sure everything checks out. These people are serious, man. A federal case is not like you versus, the state of Colorado versus you, or the state of Oklahoma versus you, or the state of North Carolina versus. This is the United States government versus you. A state case is Little League baseball, and a Fed case is the All-Star game. These people know what they're doing, and they're very serious, and they spare no expense. Now, that being said, at this point, everybody knows she's reliable. And at this point, let's go to page 12 of the motion to suppress. In September 2011, Flannery, or Big Meech, requested Tammy Cowins' help coordinating delivery of a load of cocaine to be controlled by Suarez, who at that point was already in contact with CS1, or Tammy Cowins. So Big Meech requested Tammy Cowins' help in moving some cocaine from inside prison. He's already 6 years in on his bid. This is where Cuffy comes into play. Page 12. As with Suarez, defendant Gatling, or Cuffy, first contacted Tammy Cowins to see how Big Meech was doing in jail. Based on discussions with both Cuffy and Big Meech, Tammy Cowins understood that Cuffy and Big Meech were friends. Initially, Tammy Cowins' relationship with Cuffy was more of a business relationship, and communication centered more around Big Meech's life rights, which we've already gone over yesterday, that Cuffy really was interested in getting down with the movie making. Now, however, at some point, this is on page 12, however, at some point, Big Meech, asked Tammy Cowins to connect Cuffy and Suarez, and the relationship between Tammy Cowins, Cuffy, and Suarez turned to narcotics. This is the statement she made when, this is at the beginning, when she's unknown, she's never testified, nobody knows who she is. She's been vetted by the DEA St. Louis. She's been praised by Jack Harvey as being the heart and soul of the Terry White case. And even out of her mouth, 90 to 95% was me. You understand? I bust Terry White head to the white meat based off of me. So her word is money at this point because, you know, she's into this as a monetary gain. And as we know, she, at the gate, upon meeting Keith Cromer on the very first day, asked, can she get Big Meech a time cut? At this point, she is a ghost. Nobody knows who she is. Now, let's get back to the cross-examination by Mr. Humphrey. Shout out to Mr. Humphrey, man. He did a great job. I read this thing. I read all of this line by line. I read this line by line. I like this, man. I like this. Now they talk about, now Mr. Humphrey brings up when she meets Cuffy. Mr. Humphrey. Okay, and would you have considered at that point Cuffy over the same? Well, they talk about Suarez, right? The page before, on page 152 of 271, Humphrey revisits how Suarez gets even in their lives, right? And it's because Big Meech was locked up with Suarez in St. Clair County in Michigan and met Suarez in jail. And they became friends. Okay, so they talk about how Suarez reaches out to Tammy Cowins, right? How does he get Tammy Cowins' number? Keep that in mind. Okay, now they talk about Cuffy. Would you have considered at that point Cuffy over the same time? Did he become a friend, or were you guys just discussing business? And then he says, you guys were having communications with Mr. Gatlin about legitimate business opportunities. Cuffy initially called her about legitimate business opportunities. She says that is correct. Now, this is the key. Now, you mentioned also that, and obviously we've heard about it in affidavit that you wrote, and you were concerned about there being any sort of reports about Big Meech trying to facilitate any drug deals between Suarez and Gatlin. Is that fair? She says, absolutely. Okay, now, when you met Mr. Gravis and Mr. Drake in 2015, they actually physically reviewed a copy of the affidavit with you, didn't they? Now, this is the key. the affidavit that we're reading here, that they talk about in this motion to suppress, this is what he's talking about. Now, in total, there were 3 affidavits written. In total. Now, let's go through that. The first affidavit is the one that is referenced in the motion to suppress, that she wrote under cloak and dagger. Nobody knows who she is. She's confidential, right? She's a ghost. Then, after the St. Louis DEA posts court information to Pacer, and some of Cuffy's people see the information, and the St. Louis DEA didn't redact her name, her address, or her place of employment, these people in St. Louis that are down with Cuffy find out and say, yo, homegirl is an informant. Then, this is around 2015, April 2015. Then at this point, now she's busted. She is exposed, right? And not only is she exposed, Big Meech is exposed because of the ties that she has to Big Meech, right? Now she starts to get threats. Now she's fearing for her safety, her daughter's safety. She's getting emails, phone calls, people showing up at her crib, knocking on the door. That's my fish tank, y'all. Y'all be thinking that's water running. Knocking on the door, and she's afraid for Big Meech's safety because now it's out. Now, this is when she changes her whole testimony and handwrites a new affidavit. Then she writes another one saying that there were typos in the first one. So she handwrites another one. So she's wrote 2. But she doesn't sign and she doesn't submit them. The first affidavit she signed and submitted, which is a sworn document in the court of law, and you can be imprisoned or fined if it's found that you have perjured yourself. And if there's any attorneys watching this, please go in the comment section, say you're an attorney, and talk about how the importance of somebody doing a sworn affidavit and what the penalties and ramifications could be if you found that you lied and perjured yourself in an affidavit. So boom, she writes these other 2 affidavits, but she don't submit them because they directly contradict everything she put in the initial affidavit, right? And if she signs and submits it, now she has perjured herself, right? And all of the information, all of the wiretap surveillance that the government, the DEA in St. Louis and the DEA in Atlanta have gotten gets thrown out because she perjured herself. And some of that surveillance and wiretap information could include information about Cuffy in other situations. The gun charge situation, there was some homicides and some murders, that he could have been talking about while they were trying to jam him up with the Suarez joint. So if, all of that could be thrown out if she submits that other affidavit. And that's when she changed her testimony, right? Now, and she changes it again in here, back to pretty much making it no doubt that Big Meech put her in contact with Suarez and Gatlin to do a large cocaine transaction, which should make Big Meech a co-conspirator in that conspiracy. Okay? Now, when she is found out and she writes these other two affidavits, she doesn't submit them, but what she does, because somebody's guiding her, she starts faxing them all over to everybody, sending them to Cuffy's old attorney, Wallach and Watkins, to the judge, to who else did she send them to? The St. Louis DEA. They don't believe her. They like, yo, knock it off with that, man. Chill. You just doing that because you scared, right? You just changing your story now because you scared. And, you know, your safety and Big Meech's safety, you understand, is in jeopardy now. You understand? We letting what we put out there, we gonna go with that. And it's important, right? Well, let me stay there. Let me keep going. So once she sends this all out, even though she doesn't sign it, and those affidavits, those two affidavits that she wrote, they never become sworn evidence, right? Or like documents in the case. They become part of the discovery, right? Because even though it shouldn't count, once it's out, you can't take it back. That's like this, right? Let me give you, for instance, you in court and you say, yo, the sky is green, the sky is red. And then the other attorney says, Your Honor, I object to Sean saying that the sky is red because the sky is really blue. And the judge says, objection abstained. You are right. Let that stay in the record. So then I change it, right? The fact that the judge the judge sustained that attorney's objection and it's not a part of it, it's still out in the courtroom. Everybody still heard it. You understand what I'm saying? Once it's spoken, you can't take it back. So once she did all of this, she muddied the case deliberately. But that doesn't diminish the fact that, in my opinion, doesn't diminish the fact that the first one is right and exact. So now, when she's getting the case together, right? The government is getting their case together against Cuffy, Gibbs, and the Rush brothers. The two assistant U.S. attorneys, Kravis and Grave, is it Grave? Hold on, y'all. I read this morning, man. I go to the library and read this, man. The two U.S. attorneys, hold on, let me find it, man, because I want to say it right. I just saw it. Hold on, I think it's on this page. Y'all doing all right? Here it is. Okay, now when you met with Mrs. Gravis and Mr. Drake in April of 2015, so Mrs. Gravis and Mr. Drake are U.S. attorneys from St. Louis. They jump on a flight, fly to Atlanta, and sit down with her, and it's like, yo, what's up? And they pull out the affidavit, the first affidavit, and they like with her saying like, all right, so what's not right and exact? And Humphrey and you got to read Humphrey's cross-examination, does a good job and says, well, what did the two U.S. attorneys that flew down to see, what did they say about what did you tell them that wasn't incorrect? And she says about the BMF members, right? Because remember that we said in this motion to suppress that Jack Harvey or Keith Cromer, one of them stated that her reliability was so solid, she provided information in a multitude of felonious activity that led to the arrest and seizure of drugs and money. Remember? So that part, she says, that ain't true. And then she says this, that ain't true about the BMF members and Demetrius Flannery, and cuts it off, leaves it at that, right? Doesn't elaborate on, well, this part of what Big Meech, that part, she just like throws it out there, right? Because she can't go back on her word, because that could lead to big problems for her, right? Now, so that, I say that to say about the 3 affidavits is because some of y'all took the fact that I did a video saying she changed her testimony, that was indicative of the fact that like clears Big Meech. Absolutely not. As you can see, she changes her testimony again, right? Because when they ask her specifically about August the 5th, 2012, because Humphrey asks her specifically about August the 5th, 2012, which is when Suarez is trying to get in touch with her to help him get in touch with Cuffy, because he's got the truck down there, the fucking truck down there, and I can't get in touch with Cuffy. That happened to August 5th, right? She never recants that, right? And we know that Big Meech set that up, or advised her to set that up, right? And, you know, then August the 6th, because after August the 5th, and she lies, she says that during that call, August the 5th, when Suarez is trying to get in touch with her, when Suarez is trying to get in touch with Cuffy based on the number that Tammy Cowins gave Suarez, Cuffy ain't answering the phone for whatever reason. She lies and says that while her and Suarez are there, her and Keith Cromer are listening to this on a 3-way call. That ends up being a lie. She says this later because Keith Cromer was out of town with his family, and they checked that with receipts, hotel receipts, and on his credit card, Keith Cromer's. So that part was a lie. I think really the 3-way call was with Cuffy. She got on a 3-way call. Tammy Cowins got on a 3-way call with Cuffy and Keith Cromer, right? Now, Humphrey also talks about when Tammy Cowins changes her testimony, saying that Big Meech didn't have nothing to do with it, this is what he does. This is the attorney, Humphrey, for Gibbs. Okay, and as part of your earlier testimony, you clarified that despite what's in the document, Big Meech was never involved in trying to coordinate any drug deals between Mr. Suarez and Mr. Gatlin. Is that correct? She says that is correct. Now, check this part out. Also a part of this document, there's some discussion of you, Tammy Cowins, potentially getting a finder's fee, or there's being a discussion between you and Suarez about a finder's fee for coordinating deals for cocaine. Is that accurate? She says, yes, that's true. I told them that they can give me some money so I can make sure Big Meech's books, his commissary, stays good. You know, finder's fee, yes. Then Humphrey comes back. Okay, so your intent was for them to conduct drug deals so they could give you money so you could place it on Big Meech's books. That's what I was told to say. This is her answer. That's what I was told to say. That is correct. And he says, that's what you were told to say. She says, yeah, by Keith Cromer. And then Humphrey says, okay, so Mr. Cromer told you to say that? She says, that is basically correct. This is the document, man. This is the document. Now, another critical part of the affidavit, the first one, is on August the 5th, after Suarez contacts her, trying to get Cuffy's number so that they could do the deal, that she initially said Big Meech told her to contact Suarez to get in touch with Cuffy. If that deal happens, she's going to get a finder's fee to put money on Big Meech's books, right? Now, after Suarez and Cuffy connect, because they eventually do, Suarez calls her 14 times in a matter of 47 minutes? 47 minutes, I think, or 53 minutes, something like that. And he's trying to get in touch with Cuffy. So Cuffy eventually calls Tammy Cowins, and Tammy says, yo, Suarez is trying to get in touch with you. He's been trying to call you. So they eventually connect. Now, this is August the 5th, 2012. The very next day, August the 6th, 2012. This is before Tammy Cowins is known. She's still a ghost. Nobody knows who she is. Nobody knows she's supplying information. The St. Louis DEA is on point. They step to her like, yo, come here. Sit down. Tell us everything about what happened yesterday. And she verbatim reiterates and confirms that Big Meech told her to get in touch with Suarez and Cuffy so that Suarez and Cuffy can do a cocaine transaction. So you got to read this, man. All right, this is going to be the last thing I'm going to cover, then I'm going to let y'all go. All right, so on page 161, come on, man. What's up? So on page 161, so Humphrey asks, what are they talking about here? They might be talking about the affidavit. So he's pinning her down with the affidavit. And this is what she says. Basically, what I told them was the conversations I had with Cuffy and Suarez in regards to August the 5th, and the drug transaction is 100% accurate. That is 100% the truth. In regards to the full affidavit being correct, it depends on. I don't understand you guys' language, but the fact about Big Meech, as well as another statement in there that BMF members, that was inaccurate. That was inaccurate. That was the part I was saying. So that part I recollect. I know that for sure. All this I can't, I mean, because some of this language. So now she's trying to cut Big Meech out of the drug transaction on August the 5th, but she doesn't say that. She just throws his name out there. Big Meech's name is all over that affidavit in many different respects. When he was in jail, you know, how long did you know him? You know, how long did you know Demetrius Flannery? When did you meet Demetrius Flannery? You and Demetrius Flannery are friends. Demetrius Flannery had you set up a cocaine. His name is mentioned 1,000 times in the thing. But the part she says that is absolutely true, the call I had with Cuffy and Suarez in regards to August the 5th and the drug transaction is 100% accurate. That is 100% the truth. So this is her just reconfirming, man, that Big Meech, she changed her testimony again, but due to the excellent cross-examination by Humphrey, she just pretty much reconfirms that Big Meech directed her and was involved in that transaction, because she admits that she was going to get a finder's fee, and whatever her finder's fee was, it was going to go on Big Meech's books, right? He was going to benefit, right? So this is the information. I don't want to stay on here too long. They also talk about, you know, why didn't you do any work with Hispanics? That's what you were supposed to do. And she says it in here. She says, every time they called me to do something with Hispanics, it never panned out. Nothing ever came of it. And then Humphrey says, but you kept getting paid. You kept getting compensated. What work were you getting compensated for? Y'all read it yourself. I'm done. I'm tired. What else did I want to say? I'm done. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to talk about Welby. We're going to talk about Welby, which is the attorney for Gibbs. Make sure you go follow me on my Instagram. If you want to support me, go on my website, thepodcastwasold.bigcartel.com. I got hoodies, sweatpants, shirts, my books are over there. I wrote 3 books. Check them out. And I appreciate y'all. Sean G. Don't never stop. Peace.